Hello and happy Friday, everybody. Today I have pulled from Messages from Your Animal Spirit Guides, Oracle Cards by Stephen D. Farmer. And today we pulled the polar bear, who says, "Stand up for yourself and speak your truth respectfully and compassionately with no attachment to the outcome. When you express yourself from your heart, and from a place of power, it's an unbeatable combination. You don't need to growl or bully, nor do you need to fade into the background and deny yourself the opportunity to directly affect the situation. By showing up and being completely present, even when you're simply listening, you're a force to be reckoned with. Ask for what you want and see what happens. Don't get worked up about how it turns out. You may or may not get what you want, but at least your chances are much better if you ask. As for setting boundaries with others, such as saying no to requests or demands, when you do so, they may respect your boundaries or they may try to test them. If they do try to test your limits, stand your ground, be clear, and don't apologize. Approach the situation with the purity and innocence of a child and the focused intensity of a true warrior. One who doesn't speak or act from anger, but from a place of truth and dignity. Know that when you do, you'll have nothing to fear." Some of the associated words are fearlessness, purity, leadership, powerful, provider, self-control, strength, wisdom, nobility, conservation, intensity, playfulness, and adaptability. This truly is a beautiful card, an amazing totem. So I'm also going to read a little bit about the animal totem, about the polar bear, and just how significant this amazing totem animal can be. Through the mists of blowing snow, something moves, barely visible. It's the Emperor of the North. It is the legendary and massive polar bear. When you enter the northernmost territory, you enter the land of the polar bear. The land of freezing gales, ice castles, and glaciers thousands of years old. With his camouflage of white, he symbolizes surrender, understanding the need of adaptation, and the will to survive in the harshest of lands. He accepts his surroundings. He belongs here. Endurance, strength, acceptance, and surrender are all totem powers of the polar bear. The spiritual meaning of the polar bear revolves surrender and acceptance. The white coat of the polar bear conveys the meaning that it belongs in the northern realms of the snow and ice and reminds us to surrender to where we are in our life. The polar bear not only belongs in the snowy domain, but it makes itself quite at home in it. The polar bear migrated north a long time ago and began the inner journey to change and adapt to its environment. The white coat of the polar bear also means surrender, like the white flag. He surrendered long ago to the transformation process that was inevitable, and so with time became the master of the winterlands. Because of his color, he can blend into the snow with a cloak of invisibility. He is free to roam, hunting for his meal. His only drawback is his black nose, which he learned to cover up with his paw when he is in close range of his prey, as to not give away his position. Polar bear paws are enormous, and he has tremendous power in his arms. His legs are quite long and allow him to get a better view of his surroundings, as he stands 10 feet tall. Because of his longer legs, he can run and swim effectively. The polar bear symbolism trait indicates that he reaches out to find what he's looking for, and has a strong will to attain it. His shape is unique amongst bears. Although one of the largest bears, second only to the Kodiak, he is streamlined so that he can swim more effectively from the ice shelf to ice shelf. This symbolizes that he is efficient in his thinking. The physical form and characteristics of the polar bear symbolize many things about his spiritual nature. Even the way they care for the young in the harshest of climates is a testimony to the love this creature has for its own. The polar bear spirit embodies the symbols of perseverance and gratitude. The polar bear endures one of the harshest climates in the world, second only to Antarctica. And because of her tenacity, she has learned to persevere regardless of the opposition of the cold. This realm of northern winter is also unforgiving in foraging for food and shelter, but the polar bear does not complain. She knows that to succeed, she must keep her focus on what must be done. Because the polar bear has endured such hardship, she has learned to be grateful for the small things. Other aspects of this polar bear symbolism is gratitude. The polar bear is unmatched amongst predators, especially when she has cubs to feed. She is grateful for any meal she can find and enjoys the shelter from the storm because of the harsh surroundings. Very few animals on Earth have the determination of the polar bear. When the female has cubs, she will brave any danger to feed them. Sometimes she loses a cub to hunger or to predators such as the wolves or eagles. But that doesn't stop her willful focus on providing for her little family. Her family of cubs is just as important to her as the human love is for their children. It's often a misconception that animals such as the polar bear don't feel love for their own. But polar bears feel much for their own. They're always watching them, protecting them, and providing for them. They are determined to care for their own by any means necessary. Polar bear symbolism of a deep, protective nature. Additional polar bear symbols can be found in the natures of its surroundings, the snow, cold, and ice. The snow is a symbol of purity and fresh beginnings. The purity of the snow is thought of all sublime and inspiring. The snow drifts in the wind and surrenders to the power of the air. The bear knows things, and it has surrendered to the elements. In the cold, there is an absence of heat. Heat represents aggression. The polar bear is not aggressive. He simply does what comes natural to preserve himself. He chose the snowy climate to be alone and solitary, apart from other creatures, because he does not prefer aggression, but will display it in full form when need be. In the ice, we see clarity, polar bear symbolism of crystal clear, like that of the ice that surrounds him. His self-assurance, acceptance comes from his clarity. Even though the polar bear lives in one of the harshest climates on Earth, he has developed a sense of serenity in the midst of it. In adversity, he has found peace. In the rigors of full blizzard, he has found tranquility. Through the hundreds of years of struggle in the cold wastelands, he has learned that acceptance that few others in the animal or even the human species have found. As a symbol of peace, the polar bear teaches us that you can be at peace with your life and be at one with nature and your circumstances. In adversity, the polar bear has learned that in order to survive, it must attain tranquility of spirit and has done so for thousands of years. Acceptance is a very powerful form of magic. It gives us the power to see things as they are, imbues us with the ability to see things clearly. The polar bear has accepted his surroundings and the way of life through thousands of years of struggle. He became successful in the rigors of the cold by this one fact. The polar bear accepts that it must hunt in meager circumstances to sustain its life and the life of its family. Through eons of struggle, he came to realize that to survive in a world, he had to surrender to its elements and flow with them instead of fighting them. This is the lesson of the polar bear totem animal. And it is truly, truly a beautiful and amazing lesson. And, the more that you practice and the more that you truly try to be mindful of being grateful and flowing with your circumstances and just allowing life to kind of unfold and allowing yourself to flow just with whatever comes. Being able to see things clearly without the emotion interrupting our thought processes. It's a beautiful and powerful animal to call upon when you're in your struggle, when it's hard to remember just how beautiful it is, even when it's painful. I love this animal, and I love the message that he's given. I thank you all for being here and listening to this message with me today. Until next time.